And he's the representative of Santo Daime in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, which is a church that uses ayahuasca, which they call daime, as a sacrament in their ceremonies. Paulo Roberto has also been involved with the legal defense of Santo Daime, not only in Brazil, but in other countries that have had legal issues and where they have permits to use daime legally. So it's up to you.
Thank you. Hello. For we have a better understanding about how the ethnical groups use ayahuasca in Amazonia, it would be important to, how to say, define a little better the identity of ayahuasca. One of the first contacts of Western culture with ayahuasca were done by a naturalist, a German naturalist, at the end of 19th century called von Spruce. He went to a tribe and he saw the Indians having a drink, and he asked them, what do you feel? What's the effect? And because of language barriers, the Indian took him to a bank of sand in the river and dropped the visions that they have when they drink ayahuasca. And this gentleman, so he said, so they have hallucinations. Those visions are hallucinations, so the substance can be classified as a hallucinogenic. 100 years later, in the 90s of 20th century, French scientists studying the effects of ayahuasca didn't find any record of hallucination. Hallucination regarding the psychiatric definition, that's perception with no object. In ayahuasca, that doesn't happen. See, what happens is what we may call a visionary state. That's almost opposite to hallucinatory state. Hallucinatory state, for instance, there is no time-space reference. There's no even identity reference. I worked many years in psychiatric hospitals in Rio de Janeiro. One of the first questions we do to a person, a patient who is coming in a hallucinatory state is, what day is today? Where are you? They cannot answer those basic questions. Who are you? They cannot answer that too. Another feature of the hallucinatory state is the impossibility of communication. It's almost impossible to establish a dialogue with somebody who's in hallucinatory state. And that doesn't happen in the effects of ayahuasca. You keep your time-space reference and identity reference. You have even more insights and comprehensions about who are you, where are you coming from, where are you going. So another term was created like 20 years ago about entheogenic. It's not hallucinogenic, it's entheogenic, the God within, the sacred experience, a substance that facilitates or creates a religious experience, the experience of God. We could see it in another way too. So what's the real effect in a psychological level? We have first factor, intensification or opening of the perception. Second one, expansion of consciousness. And to where conscience expands? To subconscious and unconscious levels. We have the typical image of the Freudian iceberg, with conscious over the surface, and under the surface we have subconscious and unconscious. We could visualize that too in another way, like horizontal, not vertical as an iceberg, but horizontal, like the mind as a big circle, and consciousness as a small point in the middle of the circle. So when consciousness expands, penetrates subconscious levels and unconscious. So unconscious become conscious. And when unconscious become conscious, self-knowledge happens naturally. And that's why the relation between the use of ayahuasca to treat drug addiction. See? Because in the country of the drugs, people use drugs to escape from themselves. I need to drink alcohol to forget my problems. In the case of ayahuasca, we drink to remember, not to forget. We remember who we are, where we're coming from, where are we going, what we've been doing of our lives. It's an encounter with yourself. And in the case of drug addiction, for instance, now in Rio de Janeiro, our church, the last 35 years, have thousands and thousands of cases of healing of drug addiction. We don't have heroin in Brazil, but cocaine, alcohol, and cigarettes, we have thousands of cases. You see. And because there's something like that. In a state of expanded consciousness, facilitates the encounter with yourself. And this is a healing. This encounter is a psychotherapeutical, beneficial, and in several cases, takes to self-reconciliation. Because sometimes drug addiction comes from some splittings inside. So the self-reconciliation is very therapeutical. And this happens not only for drug addiction, but for recent experiences that we're taking ayahuasca to the prisons. In Rondônia state in Brazil, ayahuasca has been given to prisoners. See? And with amazing results, because in their visionary experience, the murderers, they meet with their victims and they ask for forgiveness. See? And that creates a whole reconciliation process that's extremely beneficial. Como é que eu estou de tempo? Somebody's counting time.
Tem 9 minutes.
9 minutes?
So you shall have a card saying that you have 5 minutes. So
Okay, fine. So in this 5 minutes, I'll try to.
Just for her.
Okay, thank you.
She shall show you.
Okay. So coming back to the Indians in Brazil, I work with the protection of indigenous communities in the Amazonia for the last 20 years. And they have two basic uses. One is religious use. They drink daim to meet the spirit. They drink daim to ayahuasca, or in Amazonia has 42 names, this drink. So they drink to open the spiritual world. So they have the contact with the spirits of the forest. And who they call the creator. See? And they meet with their ancestors too in their religious experience and receive communication and guidance. Is used too for rites of passage and for several medicinal uses too. For instance, for labor, for women, ayahuasca is a purging, so has a very strong expelling force that helps very much the mother in the moment of the baby. Is used for snake bites, is used for malaria, to reduce the fever of the malaria. For fever, is a fever reducer. Is used too for breast problems, lungs problems, usually associated with another substances. For instance, they use a little bit of ayahuasca, copaiba oil, and honey. Mix, give to the children. See, with no psychological effects, with no mind effects. Is a medicinal use. Is used too for depression. And this, the University of São Paulo, already for the last 2 years, are treating depression with ayahuasca with very positive results. So just to make an explanation here about a typical thing, years ago, many years, I saw a movie from Jacques Cousteau in Amazonia, and then he was talking about shamans. First, he tells this story, shows this story in the video about a fake shaman. A shaman that say that he could heal with the smoke of cigarettes. And then comes a mother with a baby, ill, sick. The guy starts blowing cigarette smoke in the baby, and the baby dies 2 days later. And he blames Cousteau team because he says the baby died because you are vigilant. So he shows, and then he says, now we're going to see a true hospital of the forest. That the shaman, that they call him, they are pajé, he received the patient. He doesn't give ayahuasca to the patient. The patient tells him about his symptoms, and then he drinks the ayahuasca, lay down, enter in a visionary state, leave his body, meet the spirit of the forest, presents the situation of the patient, and receive recipes from in his visionary. The spirit says, oh, now this guy needs to take that tea with that leaves, use that bark, take a bath with those roots, and he comes back, he delivers the recipe, and many healings like that happens. You see. But for them, it's another kind of concept, you know what I mean? They don't understand about science or scientific knowledge. For them, everything they receive it in the dreams. Because this is really amazing. Ayahuasca is done by 2 plants. Né? One is Banisteriopsis caapi, the vine, and the other is Psychotria viridis, the leaf. How they, in a mega diversity, with thousands and thousands of vines, thousands and thousands of, how they know that that vine with that leaf will be the dream? I asked them, and said, our ancestors received that in a dream. They had a dream with the white boa, and the white boa told them to use those things, and the way it was created, the ayahuasca. And ayahuasca is used by them to, the spirit of the medicine, because for them, each medicine has a spirit. Like each plant has an angel, each tree has an angel, has the spirit of the plant, that they talk with the spirit and it shows about other plants. So they have thousands of plants that we cannot even imagine for healing. See? So coming back to the theme about addictions, it's very important to say that, for instance, in Brazil, I worked very much about the legalization of daime in Brazil since 1976. And many studies from 1982 to 1987. 1987 was legalized there. And in the 30 years ago was legalized in Brazil. In the 30 years, there's no records about ayahuasca addiction. Nobody came to a detox clinic and say, I'm addicted in ayahuasca, I need treatment. There's no records. There's no records of ayahuasca and crime as the drugs. Ayahuasca and crime, drugs and crime are so related. In ayahuasca, there's no any occurrence connecting ayahuasca and crime. So that's why even the World Health Organization created a niche for what they call sacramental plants. That they have the peyote, they have the ibogaine, and ayahuasca. Thank you very much for your attention.
Professor at the Faculty of Medicine in the University of Lisbon and Director of LIMIT Laboratory for Mind-Matter Interaction with the communication traditional uses of ayahuasca in psychiatry.
Thank you. So I put it a little bit wider than the title you have there, because if we deal with people dependent on drugs, they are somehow depressed, they are somehow anxious. That's why I put it wider and try to bring here the knowledge we got until now on these different issues, anxiety, depression, and drugs. Well, you heard Paul, and he told a lot, so probably what I'm going to say, it's nothing new, at least for some part of the auditory. It's a beverage. It stems, as he said, from Psychotria viridis and Banisteriopsis, and this kind of leaves and plants. It's a botanical hallucinogen. As we can say, it depends on the definition of hallucinations, but let us say that it's a quite accepted definition as well. It is used as a tradition in groups in the Amazon Northwest for different purposes, ritual medicine. What happens here? The two plants are active, psychoactive plants. And what can we find there? We can find dimethyltryptamine and an inhibitor of the monoamine oxidase. These issues I shall leave for Professor Olga, that is a pharmacist, a pharmacologist that is with us and shall talk a little bit about it. But I shall call your attention for the similarities of DMT, serotonin, melatonin, and amine. You see some kind of structure that is common. So we are dealing really with these plants that have the most amount of these two substances to interfere with our brain. And as we see, and we are now giving medicines, inhibitors of recaptation of serotonin to bring people out of depression. So we are here seeing the possibility of using these plants, ayahuasca, as an antidepressant as well. So can we say that it is a potential candidate for a new generation? We can consider it an old molecule with new uses. And now I know that a lot of research is being done on these substances. For instance, in Madrid, where I have been with my group as well 2 months ago, where Professor Jordi Riba is working hard, bringing more knowledge to use it probably as an antidepressant. You shall hear something new probably in the next times that I cannot disclose it right now. So what we have concerning drugs and dependence, there is not a withdrawal syndrome as we normally see in our clinics. There is a refrain of relapses. So people that does this experience with ayahuasca, there is no notice of relapses, at least after 1 year. And we know that using the normal traditional treatments, after 1 year, about 30 or more % of people using drugs are relapsing, and they keep them abstinent. What shall we see when we use ayahuasca? I quote some phrases that I read, of course, that I got from the literature. You can see jaguars, snakes, people, you know, of course. People can step in the scene. That's interesting. There is an interaction between me and the scene where I am living. I am a part of the scene that's coming in my mind. And then I interact with creation or objects that I encounter in this trip. Now the visions are very interesting because one can even think that this shaman flight to go and look for parts of the body or the soul, one can even experience it sometimes for the first time when we use ayahuasca. It's not no need to use a lot of times. The first time can be the most exciting, let us say, the most opening mind that one can have. Even experience of clairvoyance. And some, as you heard here, have a contact to the transcendent. That's why the new name of this kind of plants are called entheogenic, the God inside. Of course, there are some secondary effects, probably because one is more susceptible, or one didn't keep with some recommendations like a diet, keeping calm the days before, not eating meat or not drinking alcohol or so. And what can happen as secondary effects? There is emetic episodes, vomits. But they are quite well accepted and say this is a purge. So you are cleaning your soul. Even if you feel a nausea, you feel that you are vomiting, but you have nothing to vomit. It's like you are vomiting something that disturbs you, even a subtle way. So it is accepted. Of course, body perception. I can remember once I was taking, I was moving my hand, and my hand was here, and a part of me, let's say a shadow, was coming slowly, and I said, and then kept. So there was some body perception, some change. Of course, the array tachycardia is a slight tachycardia, nausea, and a lot of persons are crying because they get in touch with their inner experience. What should we take in account? A minimum fasting of 6 hours, because the nausea, because of the vomiting. There is a ritual of purification. Yes, that's we are not taking part in an experiment. We are taking in a ceremony to be a better person, to know oneself. That is a ritual. Songs, some are singing it during 1 hour, 2 hours, Icarus, or in another tradition, let us say, hymns, some kind of Christian hymns. And we are taking it in successive intervals, nearly about 2 hours, when the peak of ayahuasca is taking part. After 2 hours, again, Icarus hymns, and then another take, and it can last until 6 hours. What happens with this inner experience? A psychobiographic? Yes, what is in our minds? Something sometimes we really forgot, and the traumatic events that we had, and we never thought about it, but they are keeping there some kind of trauma, and they come again. They come again. But we are somehow distant, so we can see it like in a movie. But anyway, we are facing our traumas that we had, and even behaviors or choices that influence the situation we are experiencing at the moment. So it's a chance that we mirror ourselves and can handle it, can even make a proposition for life changing. That's very, very important. Or some people even get answers to future problems that they are thinking to face, or to the past, of course, and even in some sessions more than others, it seems the purpose is as well important. We can even encounter people that is not anymore with us, with disease, and our communication in a telepathic way. We do not hear, but it seems that we are getting in touch with the imago, the person that is not anymore with us, but with closed eyes, we see the face, we see the phrases, the sentences she could say. That's usual as well. And of course, emotional issues in these transforming inner experiences. There is an inner pacification. Normally, there is always an inner pacification. One feels that, okay, everything we experience probably make me the person I am. It's an acceptation. It's not a resignation, it's an acceptation. So it is like it is. And then we feel better, cleaned, a purification. Of course, it's not enough to change one's life. One got ideas, purposes. And what happens sometimes, ecstasies, or a feeling of integration in a divine purpose. So we feel that we are a piece of the universe, that we cannot be changeable with anyone or with an animal. No, we are a piece, and we are necessary for the integration in a divine purpose. And of course, we know more and more about us. That's why I call it the self-disclosure and discovery. Of course, there is a confrontation with the own emotions, and sometimes it's not easy. But as we are somehow detached, we can experience it and deal with it. It's a chance to take care of ourselves. And afterwards, what we noticed when we finish the ceremony, there is an increased empathy. Each one feels accepted by the other. Each one feels that we belong. There is a feeling of belong. There is an improved capacity of relation with the other. And some, that's probably seldom, one feels that we belong to a mysterium. I wrote it in Latin, mysterium tremendum et fascinans, something that we do not have words. Psychiatric uses addictions, that's what we are dealing here. But as I told you, depression, anxiety, that is related to addictions. So, as we heard, there is no potential for abuse or dependence like we look for this discrimination. And all these products that I quoted here can be handled with a session of ayahuasca. And there are some studies showing the evolution one could measure with the quality of life from people that enter this kind of treatment using ayahuasca. The quality of life is increasing according to the measurements when is following the follow-up after one only session of ayahuasca as I described. So there is a quality of life increasing. And we've taken account the different issues concerning tobacco, alcohol, cannabis, cocaine. One can see what's increasing in this score for the follow-up in quality of life and even interaction with people. One sees that there is really all of them are coming up with the quality of life. We began high, so it's increasing this. Of course, as I told you about anxiety, DMT and the EMAO inhibitor, so one can use it as well as an anti-anxiety product. And the more it works is with people that has an anxious background. Not all people should feel that it's a treatment for anxiety, but for those that have a background should be considered. And there is some kind of treatment using ayahuasca on depression. There is a literature review, there is not so much, it's sparse as I wrote there, because it's not yet reproductive. So only 6 cases of resistant depression that even tried suicide, that tried a long way of treatment, and that was a rapid acting antidepressant effect. It should be considered for a bigger number of studies, and it was not reproductive, but there are this kind of proposition. And this is what I consider to be uses in a psychiatric point of view. But are there other potential uses? Yes, the literature I was reading about talks about cancer, talks about Parkinson's disease, talks about Alzheimer's disease. So you see the potential of this plant ayahuasca. And this was my last slide. As I tell you, we are in front of a fractal. Ayahuasca is like a fractal. It has some laws that we are studying, but it develops, and we never know where it ends. Thank you. Thank you. So I call now Professor Olga Silva. She is professor of pharmacology in the Faculty of Pharmacy of Lisbon.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to me to stay here and to participate in this kind of conference. It's my first time. And today I will speak I will try to translate the knowledge about ayahuasca in the traditional context to the scientific context, because I think it's the unique way to validate and to try to improve the knowledge and try to promote in certain kind of circumstances the use of this kind of medicine, because as my colleagues already speak about, it is a medicine. It's a religion. We have 2 different contexts. it is usual in traditional medicine, is we need to translate the knowledge, the traditional knowledge, and to validate with scientific methods in order to certify the validity of this kind of drugs. So, in the pharmaceutical and medical point of view, we can consider the ayahuasca as an herbal medicine, a traditional herbal medicine, and prepared by decoction, not by infusion, like you can read in the most of the literature, because the method, it's a decoction. We boil the plant during different times, depending of the recipe, and also in relation to ayahuasca, not only the way of preparation could be different, but the plants involved in the preparation. Depending of the context, of the religion, of the region, of the country, ayahuasca can include only the stem of Behaviour together with other plants, not with Psychotria viridis, but the most recognized formulation is made with these two plants, the leaf of Psychotria viridis and the stem of Behaviour. And this is the first step. So we have two plants, we have a mixture. You need to know the exact amount of each plant in the mixture. And the plant, it's a biological entity. So we have different variety, and depending of the way, depending of the region, the climatic conditions, depending of the way of collection, and depending of the way of dried, because in some context we use the plants dried, but usually we use the plant fresh. So the composition cannot be the same. And in this context, when we speak about the hallucinogenic and the antidepressant activity of these plants, usually we speak about not more than 5 constituents. I don't know if you realize that in the plant we have more than, it's calculated that we have more than 3,000 constituents in each extract. So from these only, because it's related with the development of the chemistry and the development of the science during the last century, and in the context of each plant and in each mixture, we have different active compounds. They usually 4 compounds, and now all the studies related with ayahuasca are related with these 4 compounds. I think it's a little reduced, this kind of context. In any case, we can, because the kind of compounds that we are speaking about, they are usually responsible for the toxic effects in the plants. Not only in these 2 plants, but in all around the world. And usually, in each plant or in each extract, we have other constituents that can modulate the activity, the toxicity, the absorption, so the pharmacokinetic of the formulation. And in this context, nothing is done related with ayahuasca until now. So all the studies that we can find in the literature, more than 3,000, are related not only with ayahuasca, but also directly related with the compounds isolated from this plant. That means we can, and as Professor already to speak about, we can identify the DMT, the psychotropic substance, and in the pharmacological point of view, it is a 5-HT receptor agonist responsible for the activity at the central nervous system level, and also monoamino oxidase inhibitors, like this is the indolic alkaloids. We call the group of Arman because they are isolated for the first time from another plant, and the alkaloids are armine, tetrahydroarmine, and armaline and armol. 3 of them are monoamino oxidase inhibitors, but tetrahydroarmine is not a recognized inhibitor of this enzyme. So, in relation to this context and to the compounds already identified in the ayahuasca, I can tell you that we have proof that more than 10,000 papers related to the activity of these alkaloids in relation to the depression, in relation to cancer, in relation to psychiatric diseases, in relation to, and also in relation to Parkinson, and in relation to, and also related with DMT, we can find the same kind of studies. But this is almost done with the isolated chemical compounds, not with the drink, not with the traditional herbal formulation. And in this context, they determined that the doses of each compound needed to improve or to give us an activity is already determined. You can see here in relation to the DMT that small doses of 0.1 to 0.2 milligrams per kilo is of the pure compounds is responsible for the activity or for the effects and at level of effectivity, recognized, and also in the perception, and it's not a lot. And this kind of compounds could or not be present depending of the formulation, depending of the ayahuasca drink that we have. They can be in this concentration or not.